Here we go. Okay, so this is the main important part. This is what they're doing to camping. There are some things I like about it and things that I don't like. They are reducing the meter to fill 50% slower. However, the longer you are nearby it, it fills faster up to 200%. I think this is like a good like pull. You know, you get to see certain things. The one thing I don't like is they increase the range of the anti-face camp radius to 20 meters. I think that's a little too generous. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe don't increase that, but decreasing it by 50% is good, and they also made it so it pauses the hook timers for, or the anti-cam meter for all survivors. That way when you hook someone in the basement, it does pause the timer for the person you just hooked, but previously it wouldn't pause the timer for someone else who was already hooked in the basement. So now it will also pause their thing. Very specific scenario. It's a good change. I just don't like the increased range, but overall I think it's good. And they also made it so you can see your teammates' progress bar. You can see a little bit right here. It fills up. So now you know when a teammate's going to be able to unhook themselves, which is really good for solo queue because so many teammates would get close to the hook trying to go for the unhook because they didn't know how close your bar was for the anti-camp meter. So this will help solo queue a lot, which is why I like this change. Tunneling. Now, this is something that was a very hot topic in the last PTP, but they did listen very well to the feedback. There is only some slight criticisms I have for it, but overall, I think it's great. So, here we go. You get to keep the 10% haste. You get to keep the 10 seconds of endurance. However, the elusive status effect that was in the previous PTB is coming back. Now, this is a status effect that I was totally fine with them adding. I think it's great. No aura, pools of blood, scratch marks, runs of pain. It basically makes it harder for you to track, so it's base kit babysitter, which is nice because babysitter was really good for anti-tunneling. It's a perk that I use in my survivor win streaks. I know babysitter is good. It has helped teammates that are getting tunneled escape from the killer several times and they couldn't find them. So, you know, it does what it's supposed to do. It is an anti-tunnel mechanic, and they removed the no collision. That way, you know, you don't have the kill or the yeah. They removed the no collision. They made it so you make no sound against certain killers like Nemesis or Plague. So coughing and puking won't happen anymore. You won't gain AFK points. You see the killer within 32 meters. You lose all of this when you get on a gen or start healing yourself or someone else. This makes sense. Obviously, it works just like DS. When in endgame, only 10% haste and endurance are granted for 10 seconds. So this means that all of these effects throughout the game are going to last the 30 seconds. This is my criticism on it. I think this is too much against the weaker killers. Someone in my chat suggested that they should make it so Blight, Nurse, Ghoul, Billy, Dracula should have it last 30 seconds, but all the other killers should get the base kit 10 seconds or maybe 20 seconds. I definitely agree with that. I think 30 seconds is too long for some killers, and it's just long enough for the S tiers. So if they want to do something like that, they should definitely do that. It should not be 30 seconds against Trapper, for example. 30 seconds of endurance is a little ridiculous, but the idea behind this mechanic is good, and it's kind of winning me back. But after this, they do something even better for the killer side. They've decided that instead of making it so you get nerfs if you tunnel, they're removing all the nerfs if you tunnel. They're giving only incentives, which is perfect because some matches against really good survivors you have to tunnel and there's nothing you can do to avoid needing to do that. But the incentives will make it so the matches where you don't really need to tunnel, you actually have a reason not to. Instead of just being like, well, I might as well tunnel even though we're at 4 gens, because why wouldn't I? You can be like, oh, I don't want to tunnel because we're at 4 gens. I might as well not tunnel so I can get these extra bonuses. And these bonuses are really good, and they did it in a way where it doesn't add any base kit gen regression, which means they don't have to go back and nerf all the slowdown perks again, which is great because I didn't like all the nerfs they did to the slowdown perks. I am much more prefer this. This is a great system, probably the best way they could have done it. I'm not gonna lie, like this is perfect. So upon hooking a unique survivor, hooking different survivor, you gain Bloodlust for 15 seconds. This goes away when you break a pallet or start a chase with the survivor, obviously. Or you use your power. So if you start with Blight and you rush immediately, it goes away instantly, you know? So this is purely going to buff weak killers like Trapper who don't have like their power to use mobilities like that. So this is good. It doesn't affect the strong S tier killers, but it buffs the weaker ones. You gain a stackable blood point multiplier on your match score. They're adding base kit, barbecue and chili, old barbecue and chili, if you hook individual survivors. So 25% for the first survivor, I'm going to assume, we don't know the exact numbers, and then maybe the second survivor is 50%, 40% or 75%, and then 100%. So if you don't tunnel, the incentive is not only will you not get punished for tunneling, if you don't tunnel, the benefit you get is purely blood point incentive. So you don't even need to worry about losing out on too much if you do tunnel. Like, sure, you'll lose out on blood points, but you're not going to get absolutely screwed by it, you know? So this is a great change. Making it the bonus incentive entirely blood point based is exactly what I could ask for, because it makes it so if you do need to tunnel, like I said, you don't have to worry about missing out on too much, but you also don't have to worry about the punishments that you were facing in the previous PTB. They also buffed the score events relating to hooks. First hooks are now 750 blood points. That's just a nice little thing for killer. The golden ticks just mean that you're going to get the blood point bonus and you'll get the bloodlust. So golden tick go burr, as they said. If it's a red tick, you just don't get the bonus, but you don't get any downsides. Very good changes. They've swapped the haste bonus for bloodlust. We've removed the bonus generator damage for the next kick. They removed the aura reveal, and those are the three things they removed. There is something about slugging a little bit further up here. The devs agreed that slugging for pressure in this scenario where you down someone and then you chase somebody else who has, is nearby, slugging for pressure is good. They wanted to point out that the bad kind of slugging is when you 4-man slug, which are the Billy players that run, like Infectious and just absolutely, and the Crow perk or whatever, and they just slug you at 5 gens. This will mainly affect them. So what they're going to do is they're revisiting previously in the PTB after 90 seconds of being slugged on the ground, you could pick yourself up. They're making this 120 seconds. So this is really good because you can only be on the ground for 240 seconds, right? That's half of your bleed out timer, which I would agree is excessive slugging. You should be able to pick yourself up if you've been on the ground for 2 minutes, because that is extremely excessive slugging. That is half of your bleed out timer, okay? And it does unlock it permanently for the rest of the trial, but then again, given how long it takes to recover, if you've already gone through half of your bleed out timer, I feel like, you're only going to be able to pick yourself up a few more times before you bleed out anyways, so it resetting completely wouldn't make much sense, because you're not going to be able to wait another 120 seconds. The recovering is just like that. They also made it so it fills 33% faster for each additional survivor in the dying state. So if you're slugged, after 120 seconds, you can pick yourself up. If another teammate is slugged with you, that is 33% faster. And if a third teammate is slugged, that's 66% faster. And then if another teammate is slugged, it's 99% faster. Now, the only problem I have with this is it's a little too fast for the additional teammates being slugged. I think it should be 10%, not 33%. So 10, 20, and then 30% if you have additional teammates slugged. I think 30% is good. The 33% just stacks exponentially a little bit too high, because 99% means that you would be able to pick yourself up in 60 seconds, and that is actually faster than what it was on the previous PTB, which I believe would be problematic. I think this mechanic is great. Half your bleed out timer, 120 seconds, is more than fair. Picking yourself up infinitely after that, I think, is also more than fair, because you're probably not going to be able to do it much more before you bleed out. And once the survivor is full, they can obviously recover on their own. They also made it so crawling speed increases over time while in the dying state, up to 1.05 meters per second, but they removed the base kit ability to recover and crawl at the same time, because it was a little too strong. I agree with that. Great changes for slugging. Really good changes for killer incentives for tunneling. Really good changes for not nerfing killers for tunneling. Really good changes for giving survivors a little bit of an elusive status effect to help getting rid of the killer after getting unhooked without removing the notification. So the killer knows that the unhook still happened, and they still get that crucial info to know what the survivors are doing, like the unhook happened, so now I know that someone got off a gen, and went to go do the unhook, so I don't have to worry about the gen in the corner of the map getting done because someone was there for the unhook. Because you know when it happens still. Because they're still letting us see the notification of the unhook, which is good. Which is one of the worst things I didn't like about the PTB is it gave them this elusive fact, and you didn't get to know when the unhook happened, so it would lose out on so much information for the killer because you wouldn't know if a survivor's working on a gen, if they're unhooking and healing, if they're if they're gonna let their teammate go second and they're gonna stick on a gen. Like it just removed too much crucial information for the killer. They're making Azrov's brighter. I don't really like how bright it is. They showed us the top 5 maps. Kind of interesting. Dead Dog, Ormond, RPD, Freddy Fazbear, and another both RPD. People complain about RPD a lot, so it's kind of crazy that it's in the top 5, but Dead Dog makes sense. I also like Dead Dog. They're going to be making it so the realm repeat prevention is a bit better. That's great. They're going to make it account for all 5 players in the trial, so that way everybody's map repeat prevention kind of stacks. So if 3 of them went on Ormond, Ormond will be at a decreased chance, and if the killer and the 4th survivor were both on Azarov's, then that will be a decreased chance of going to that map, which is good. Make it so you don't get as many repeat maps, and they said they're also going to be rebalancing the weight of maps based on the maps that people like the most. So if they vote on what maps survivors or killers like the most, then those maps will have a higher weight to get. So they're also reworking the HUD for the graphics and settings. They're adding these little bars you can drag instead of having to click them a million times. But also, the biggest feature here is they are adding colored scratch marks. You can choose the color of your scratch marks. There is a lot of colors already, 10 of them. They did say they will be adding more in the future, so that is cool. People were requesting purple, so purple, we can expect to see that. They look just like this. It really is nice because red scratch marks on Coldwind is kind of hard to see. I agree with that, especially on Toba. So these blue scratch marks are a lot brighter and easier to see. Very good changes in terms of that. They went over this for a while, showcasing a bunch of the different stuff, so it wasn't like too much. But they also wanted to highlight what's coming in this. So they did say they're adding some buffs for Skull Merchant right now since she is in the absolute dumpsters, weakest killer in the game. And they said if these buffs are well received by the player base, they will keep these buffs and they will keep Skull Merchant as is, and they'll scrap the rework they have coming for her. If these buffs are not well received or they are not like good enough and not satisfactory enough, then they will continue putting their resources into the rework. They did say, however, the rework is very technical and requires a lot of members of the team to be coding it and working on it because of how the power is going to be designed. So they said, if you guys like these buffs we're giving her, we'll not do the rework so we can have those people putting their efforts into something else more important in the game. If you want to see the full list, they made it so the drones rotate faster. The hinder is increased to 10%, was 8. You can deploy a drone every 7 seconds now instead of 10. And they decrease the undetectable duration to 6 seconds, so you can't be permanently undetectable. And so that's nice. They also removed the fast fall immunity to scan lines, which is good because you could just spam vault and then they couldn't find you. And they removed the thing where you instantly get a claw trap if you stand underneath the drone. Instead, you'll get 1 stack of lock on every 2.5 seconds you're standing underneath the drone. Good changes. They're definitely not satisfactory enough, I think, to cancel out the rework. I still am much more looking forward to the rework, but I know some people who really like Skull Merchant how she currently was or kind of is probably more prefer the buffs to what she has now. If they want to keep it, I say they have to give her back the 2 scan lines. The 1 scan line just simply isn't good enough. So if they want to not do the rework, they need to give her back the 2 scan lines for sure. They also decreased killer detection range for the drone, so Skull Merchant herself won't make the drone fly up if she goes near it. If she goes directly under it, it will still go up, but it is a lot more forgiving, so you don't cuck your own power as much, which is nice. And then they just showed all the stuff here. We got stuff for Trickster, I believe, was next, right? Trickster was over. I swear Trickster was here next. They paused. Okay, no, Trickster. Yeah, what about Trickster? He is his update is in active development. It brings him to the next level and will be visually very cool, like him. Very excited. As a longtime Trickster player, and he is my most played killer of all time, I am excited for this. It aims to please longtime Trickster players like myself and invite others to try him out. They hid a little thing in here that just spells out style. I don't know why, but maybe they're adding a whole new part to his power that looks visually cool. That's the only thing I could assume, because the only way you could upgrade his visuals is by giving him new animations, and new animations usually means new power. So we'll see how that goes. I feel like that is all the major things that they discussed. They did give us a small surprise at the end about Frank Stone, but I just want to go through here and check everything. The merch store is being upgraded. That's cool. Blah, 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 blah. But at the end, they did tell us that Frank Stone will not be coming as a skin for the chapter. Or for the chapter. Oh my. For the it will be coming as its own chapter most likely, but it will not be coming as a skin for Trapper, is what I was trying to say. So they confirmed they're scrapping the idea of giving Frank Stone a skin for Trapper, and they're bringing forth they said it was a cliffhanger. They didn't say this, but I'm going to do my speculation part here. Because they confirmed it's not coming as a skin for Trapper, this can only mean it's going to be a future chapter, and I am super excited for that because I love the casting of Frank Stone. Frank Stone looked really cool, and he definitely has a power that is more complex than setting bear traps, so they can definitely do something cool for his power, and I really like the survivors. There is 4 that you can keep like in the endings of casting of Frank Stone, when they're all around the campfire and stuff like that, there are a potential of 4 survivors, and if you lost anybody along the playthrough, they get replaced by Meg, Jake, and Claudette, and Dwight. But if you don't lose anybody, there are 4 possible survivors, and I am curious if they would add all 4 survivors in the chapter. What I think is they would probably add 2 survivors, and then the other 2 survivors would be legendary skins. So this will probably end up being a licensed chapter with Frank Stone, with 2 survivors and 2 legendary skins, as well as Frank Stone as the killer. And maybe we could get the mansion house as the map. That would be cool as fuck, having like the entity claws coming out of the sky from up high, like it was happening, like the big entity storm in the game. I just really like Frank Stone. I'm excited that they left that cliffhanger. But yeah, overall, they said the purpose of this chapter was to make it so they rebuild the relationship with the community, and I was kind of laughing at that because I was like, how. Oh wow, Pixel Bush right here saying we're so back actually. So he's a Skull Merchant main. Maybe that means he likes the changes, but he seems to have liked the changes in this update. But they said the purpose of this stream was to rebuild the relationship with the community, and I think that's exactly what they did here. This was a very good stream. It was about almost 2 hours, and a lot of good changes. I think it was a phenomenal stream, as Revium said here, and he got timed out because he swore, but it was a phenomenal stream. The anti-tunnel changes that survivors get is good, except for how long the endurance lasts. Maybe just decrease the endurance. Like I said, do the things for the S tier killers, maybe nerf that a little bit. The incentives for killers not to tunnel is perfect. They are purely blood point incentives, so you're not missing out on much if you don't do it. And if you do need to tunnel, you don't get punished, which is another good thing. The anti-slug mechanic only kicks in really excessive slugging scenarios where half of your bleed out timer is gone. The only downside of that is that it speeds up a little too much if 4 people are slugged on the ground. But then again, it still should have something, so 10, 20, 30% increase makes sense, because if 4 people are slugged, I think it should be increased at least a little bit. 99% when 4 people are slugged is just a little too fast. Everything else is cool. The possibility of Frank Stone coming as its own chapter, the scratch marks having their own customization colors is cool. The Skull Merchant buffs to either off, even though I was actively talking, is crazy. The Skull Merchant buffs that were meant to offset the rework or cancel it out are nice, because even if it doesn't cancel the rework, it'll be good for like while we wait for the rework. It'll kind of make Skull Merchant players happier. And the Trickster rework, I'm just happy we got an update because we were left in the dark. We got the design preview for Trickster, it feels like almost a year ago now, and we haven't heard anything about it. So this is the first time we're hearing about it. I'm glad they're being transparent and letting us know it's still happening and that it's in active development. I'm personally excited for it. This is cool. Very good live stream. They called it the October Community stream, and they said this is the first of its kind. I hope they keep doing this because I really liked it. Their transparency was great, and the decisions they made were good. They actually listened to the feedback because there was a lot of negative feedback about these anti-tunnel changes in the last PTB. Let's just hope they listened to these small fine tweaks of ideas I had for the changes they showed today. I probably will give some feedback in the forums, just on like I don't like how fast it goes, the anti-slug, or I don't like the increased range on the anti-camp meter, or stuff like that. Everything else is good though. Very good change. DBD is actually winning me back. I think this patch is going to save DBD because they were on a really downhill slope for a while. But this chat might turn it around. I think this is winning me back. I know it's winning other people back in my chat. So I'm excited to see how the rest of the community reacts to this video. That's all. Thank you.